So all of a sudden there's an interesting talking point about James Comey and those memos he wrote regarding how Trump asked him to end the investigation on Flynn. Now, that was big news because that could be perceived as obstruction of justice. At the time, James Comey's the head of the FBI. Trump pulls him aside. The president says, hey, stop the investigation on Flynn. Comey, according to his own testimony, takes a memo about that right afterwards and puts it on the record in the FBI. And once he's no longer the FBI director, after Trump fired him, he comes out and says, yeah, I wrote it down immediately after he told me so that it's on the record. Okay, so you know that part of the story. Well, now there's an attack against Comey saying that some of the stuff that he had in those memos might have been classified, and did he leak stuff that was classified? So it was on Drudge Report, so it must be true, and also on Fox. Well, let's check that out.
Remember when James Comey testified the material he leaked to a friend was not classified?
Yeah, my view was that the content of those unclassified, the memorialization of those conversations was my recollection recorded.
Well, it turns out he actually may have broken the rules. A brand new bombshell report accuses Comey of putting our national security at risk. According to The Hill, the former FBI director's personal memos detailing private conversations with President Trump contained top secret information.
Top secret information. Actually, I don't think I read the Hill story. I don't think they use the words top secret. Top secret and classified are different. I'm trying to explain that to a Fox anchor. Anyway, so is it true? I mean, that would be very hypocritical of James Comey, because you remember what he said about Hillary Clinton of all people. He said that, quote, there is evidence that they, meaning the Clinton office, were extremely careless in their handling of very sensitive, highly classified information. Of course, he famously did not pursue charges against her, but did upbraid her in that press conference where he gave that quote. So if it turns out he leaked stuff that is classified, boy, that would be an interesting charge of hypocrisy, and some Republicans might revel at that, given that Comey's a thorn on Trump's side right now. Some Democrats might secretly snicker as well. Well, the question is it true? Well, everybody's quoting the same guy, John Solomon at The Hill. So let me quote him for you too, so you get the full context, and then let's talk about who John Solomon is. Comey testified last month before the Senate Intelligence Committee that he considered the memos to be personal documents and that he shared at least one of them with a friend. He asked that friend, a law professor at Columbia University, to leak information from one memo to the news media in hopes of increasing pressure to get a special prosecutor named in the Russia case after Comey was fired as FBI director. Now, all that is true. That's right. That's a good beginning to the story. That just explains what Comey did in the past. So then he says, more than half of the memos former FBI Director James Comey wrote as personal recollections of his conversations with President Trump about the Russia investigation have been determined to contain classified information, according to interviews with officials familiar with the documents. Interesting. I wonder who those guys are. So Solomon continues, this revelation raised the possibility that Comey broke his own agency's rules and ignored the same security protocol that he publicly criticized Hillary Clinton over in the waning days of the 2016 presidential election. So now, if true, that would be interesting. I don't know if it'll rise to the level of actionable. Comey might have to do a press conference where he says, well, I'm not pursuing myself, but what I did was extremely careless. He's no longer the FBI director, so he wouldn't do that. But it would be a nice gotcha moment, if that turns out to be the case. And Democrats, like I said, might secretly rejoice a little bit, but mainly the Trump administration would be like, yes, that discredits him and we're done with him. Even though it doesn't actually discredit the stuff in the memo at all. What it does is politically attack James Comey for revealing what's in the memo. It doesn't make the memos any less true, let alone the fact that I'm not convinced that this is the case. Again, we'll get back to who the author of this article is in a second. Now, speaking of which, John Solomon writes, to give you a sense of how much of a witch hunt there's going to be now on Comey. In order to make an assessment, congressional investigators will have to tackle key questions, such as where and how the memos were created, including whether they were written on an insecure computer or notepad, where and how the memos were stored, such as inside Comey's home, in a briefcase, or on an insecure laptop, whether any memos were shown to private individuals without a security clearance, and whether those memos contained any classified information. And when it was determined by the government that the memos contained classified information before Comey took them and shared one or after. So, in other words, James Comey, if you wrote that memo on a notepad right after the Trump meeting in your car and put it in your briefcase, I don't know, was it properly secured? Was it classified? If it was classified, you wrote it on an unsecured notepad and you wrote it on a desk and the desk is unsecured. He's the FBI director. And I don't know. We're gonna have to look at every nook and cranny. Were you eating lunch? What lunch were you eating when you wrote that note? Did you write the note? Did you speak the note? Was anybody else in the room? So look, if you thought there was a real issue that James Comey accidentally shared classified information with the Russians, the Chinese, the public, and blurted out like, hey, here's my memo. Oh, here's me talking with Trump, which is unclassified, about how he wants me to end the investigation. And here's the nuclear codes right underneath it. Then yeah, then get into his lunch and whether he wrote it on a goat or on a boat, right? But this is basically saying we're coming to get you, James Comey. Oh, you thought and you claim very clearly that they were unclassified. They were just recollections of your meeting with Trump. There's nothing classified about that. You say potato, I say potato, brother. Okay, and where's your notepads? Because I am coming to invade your life. So, is it true? Well, John Solomon is the person who wrote it here. Look, you look at The Hill. Everybody's saying The Hill, nobody's saying John Solomon. The Hill is reporting Comey's private memos on Trump conversations contain classified material. Right underneath it, we highlighted for you John Solomon. So who is John Solomon? He works at The Hill now, but here is two of his previous employers. He was editor-in-chief of the Washington Times, which is a conservative propaganda outlet run by, or at least previously run by, I don't know who owns it today, owned by Reverend Moon, some lunatic that wanted to pursue a lot of different things, including his right-wing agenda. But that's not an exaggeration, by the way. Look it up, or look up Reverend Moon, lunatic. Chief Creative Officer also for Circa News. Circa News, haven't heard of them. That sounds kind of interesting, right? Yeah, they're owned by Sinclair Broadcasting, right-wing media outlet that does propaganda for Donald Trump, against Barack Obama in the past. They own a lot of local TV stations. John Oliver recently did a great story about them. We have covered them in the past, and local televisions where a lot of people unfortunately still get their news and certainly get their political ads, and Sinclair Broadcasting will put conservative op-eds in without clearly labeling that they're op-eds or that they're from headquarters into local news with absurd propaganda in them. And Circa was their digital effort to do this. And if you look up articles in Circa, it is one after another defending Donald Trump, criticizing his opponents, et cetera, et cetera. So the guy who wrote this story is a person who's run many conservative outlets. I don't, look, now he works for The Hill, so I don't know to what degree they had an obligation to point out that the writer of this article is deeply conservative. And you don't have to say deeply, however conservative he is, but he clearly worked for very, very conservative outlets that have a very clear track record. But they never mention any of that. I'm not saying the guy can't write the article. I'm not saying he can't even write a straight news article if mainly he worked on commentary in the past. Maybe a little note to let us know. So right now, I think we're among the very few outlets talking about that. Everybody else is like, oh, The Hill is reporting. The Hill is reporting from an incredibly conservative source that James Comey, questionable. So suffice it to say, I'll believe it when I see it. So right now, there is no evidence outside of anonymous sources from a very conservative writer that this is true, and then reverberating through Drudge and Fox News, two outlets who also have about zero credibility. So now you know. If you like this clip of the Young Turks, you know there's a whole live 2-hour show, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern every day, and you can download it or stream it and watch it without ads if you become a member. tytnetwork.com/join.